Hello, and welcome to the latest in the series of podcasts from Neurodiversity in Business. My name is Dan Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Neurodiversity in Business, and I'm really delighted to welcome here today Dr. Samantha Hiew. She's a bit of a hero of mine. She's very active in the ND space and incredibly eloquent on the topic of intersectionality within ND, which, as we all know, is such an important topic for our community. Sam is the founder of ADHD Girls, which is a social impact company. And Sam, I'll let you introduce yourself and if maybe you can tell our membership a little bit more about what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. I'm really happy to be here. I am Sam. You can call me Sam or Samantha, and I am the founder of a social impact company with a dual mission to empower girls and women with ADHD to thrive in society and to improve societal understanding of ADHD. And this company is called ADHD Girls, and it began when I was looking for answers myself about, am I going to be okay being diagnosed later in life? And throughout this journey, I have managed to, get a grant to put up professional and personal development workshops for women with ADHD, and also train companies and speak to the public at large about neurodiversity. It's been very rewarding so far.
Great. Well, thank you for that intro, Sam. And let's just start from the basis of zero or little knowledge, right? So let's talk about perhaps what ADHD is and how we're trying to evolve our understanding of that topic. But I think what's most interesting to me, and I've learned a lot from you and from others like Atif Chowdhury, is let's also maybe touch on that intersectionality. So how does this interplay with gender balance and ethnicity and culture? And also, we're starting from a very low base here, aren't we, in terms of the misdiagnosis and underdiagnosis for females. But let me just let me listen to you and learn.
Yeah, well, so thanks, Dan, for giving me this stage. So my journey started with really understanding why did female get underdiagnosed, right? And so many women, are coming forward to get a diagnosis. And from 2019 to 2021, there has been a 3,200% increase in women that came forward to do an online test to see if they have ADHD, and this is causing a bottleneck, in the NHS referral systems, and even the right to choose service, where your CCG pays for your private diagnosis is also, really oversubscribed at the moment. And the reason for that is that women are realizing now through stories that are being told by other women, what ADHD can look like in women, which is very different by, to what society had us believe, to be naughty white boy syndrome, and so people like me who grew up in a different culture. I come from Malaysia and moved to the UK when I was 24. And so someone like me could never really identify with disrupting the class, because it was so important for me to do the right thing, to be seen as respecting my teachers. Yeah, and it's not just the gender bias, I've noticed there's the ethnicity bias, where we don't know how ADHD or other neurodivergence, look like in other cultures, where maybe you have to comply and be polite in order to stay safe, Yeah, so there's so much plays into it. And since I started speaking about it, I've spoken to the BBC team, where they were really interested in the intersectionality piece, and they wanted to know, is there a legacy of male bias, in the diagnosis, what's it like for people who come from socially disadvantaged background, where they can't advocate for themselves or don't have the means to, find the right words to tell the GP, and then get swiftly turned away when they're trying to look for help.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really relevant. And I think that, as we know, the medical profession moves quite slowly, right? So all of the great work you've been doing in terms of raising awareness and understanding of this topic, I guess what you're also trying to do is hit those early stage medical practitioners who are coming into their career, so that hopefully we're not making the mistakes of the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, I didn't. It's actually really great that when the medical community is asking activists and social groups like myself, what does ADHD look like in women? How do we, ask the right questions in order to get to the right answers? Because as you know, the DSM-5 and the pre-assessment rating skills is not really built, based on research done in women, and so they are learning, and a psychiatrist, has come to me recently to ask, what should I say, when I train the other psychiatrists. And if we keep having these conversations, then things are going to change. If it's already changing, and people don't like the definition of ADHD because it doesn't, relate to how they see themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we had this chat over dinner, didn't we, recently, very briefly, which is what a terrible term. And, might there be in the next 10 years some bright person who comes up with a term that the community can coalesce around? And I think you mentioned something, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So there are a few people who are really vocal about ADHD from like, a decade ago, even before it became this wide movement. Is Dr. Ed Allawell, whom I interviewed, and John Ratey recently wrote a book, and they proposed a new term called VAST, as variable attention stimulus trait, because people with ADHD don't have a deficit in attention. We have it in abundance.
Right.
We can see so many things, at the same time. We can hear more and feel more than most people. So yeah, I mean, I know Tony Lloyd is also really keen to change the name. We talked about it in a conference that we ran recently with him. And yeah, so we are, at the cusp of this place where hopefully this campaign is going to reach, the people who can make changes within the naming of the DSM-5. Because as you know, Asperger's is not even in the DSM anymore.
No, and that's a whole nother topic and very controversial in itself. So can I just pause us, Sam, on that point then? So just say that those words slowly and repeat them again. So it's called variable.
Okay, so it's VAST, VAST, and
Yes.
it's variable attention stimulus trait.
Got it. Okay. And gosh, that's you explained this to me over dinner, but that's just so much more engaging, and people can coalesce around that rather than deficit, disorder, etc., isn't it? So how do you feel? Do you feel kind of more comfortable with that term?
Well, yes, I do feel more comfortable with that term, but I almost feel like it needs to be a catchy, acronym in order for people to really hold on to it. ADHD, even though the actual definition wasn't catchy, the acronym has been something that people have known for over a century. And so, yeah, whatever we're going to name next is going to be something that people can just immediately see that and like, yes, that's me,
I see.
and, yeah.
Got it. So you touched a little bit on the gender side, which, as we know, at least in the Western world that I know, is significantly prejudiced around understanding those traits in females. But tell me a little bit more about your experience on the ethnicity side, because you touched on the fact that you in school, you were always very keen to present a certain image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's also it's like a cultural control where it also depends on the people be friends with, who you learn from and who you want to be better for. So the society that I kind of moved around were around the middle class. A lot of my friends were middle class, and they were very keen to do well in their studies, because it was cool to be intelligent. It was cool to be smart. It was cool to be a school prefect, which
Right.
is different, to some of the stories I've heard about my friends here who grew up in the north of the UK, and they said actually it's not cool to be seen as a know-it-all, and like, yeah, they almost like to dumb down and be a bit ditzy just to kind of fit in. But it's different in Malaysia. It was very much about the culture of achievement and respect and status. And so I spoke just now in another interview that the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is different in the Asian culture, because in the Western culture, you see the sense of safety and belonging, and your self-esteem, and then fulfilling your potential is like the pinnacle of the needs. But in the Asian culture, the top pinnacle is respect and status. That is what people want in the Asian culture. And so having that in mind, you really respect the people who are like maybe your teachers or your parents. You don't show them disrespect. So being that, the people pleasing side is almost amplified when you have ADHD and you're so worried about doing wrong that you are going to put in double effort to be, the good person and, do the right thing. But obviously, it also depends on your upbringing as well, what kind of, like place you grow up in, and, the messaging, the parents you've had, how they treat you. So, all this play, into how it manifests for somebody. And of course, you're going to get the stories of people, even in Asia, who, went down the wrong path, maybe be friends with a wrong group of people, and that could change the trajectory of their lives, But ultimately, I think what helped me was having someone who really believed in me in school, like a teacher who kind of helped me change things around, because I was really in danger of leaving, education with really bad like grades and probably, not much hope for a good future.
Got it. Well, look, thanks for being so transparent on that. Another thing I'm really interested to get your views on, Sam, is just around the corporate world. Now, clearly, I see, and hopefully you agree, that there is an awakening in 2022, that all of the great work that the big players in the ND ecosystem have done for many decades, and we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? But it seems like the corporate world is now starting to pay more attention, and I guess that's manifesting itself in terms of the war for talent that we see in the corporate world now is extremely fierce, bigger than I've ever seen in my 21 years in this space. And also that we're starting to recognise, thankfully, that diversity of thought is a competitive advantage. So I'd love to hear from your lived experience where you think businesses actually need to start doing more or doing better around ADHD, and particularly with females.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think really the first step is to get more understanding around how different conditions or neurodiverse experience can manifest within, different people. And as you know, and you've said it as well, at the ball that we both attended when we chatted, is that people do tend to generalize,
right?
Like ADHD or what autism spectrum condition looks like, what ADHD look like, or what Tourette's look like. But yeah, to understand how each person might need different things, so focus on needs-based support rather than label-based support, so that just covers the whole person, right? Because
I like that. Yeah, needs-based support. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and also, like, I suppose what one person needs is going to be different from the other person, right? And another thing that's so important is that we should have a culture of compassion. I think what Charlotte Valor was talking about in her talk is there is this hierarchy, within a company, as more and more that you see within bigger companies, that maybe people on the top bit, the executive level, wants to do good, but then, and then you get the people who are doing the work, who wants change, who wants things to be better. But then you get the frozen middle, the middle management that's maybe not getting enough communication and feel trapped on the level of authority they have to run, the campaigns or make changes. So
right.
To be top down and trickle over middle management, so everyone benefits.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to phrase it, because I'm also, you talked about that frozen middle, and pleasingly, we're seeing, I'd be interested in your view, Sam, we're seeing the people who are joining the profession, probably the younger employees, actually, there tends to be an increasing willingness to talk about this topic. And I know, of the 200 odd members for neurodiversity in business, a significant minority of those, we've been brought into the organisation from the employee resource group rather than the head of HR or the head of diversity and inclusion. Those people have been banging on the door saying, actually, you know, we're desperate that we should be doing more. Why don't we join up to NiB? So it feels like there's it feels like there's a new era starting with people willing to talk about this topic.
No, yeah, definitely. And, you know, I mean, a lot of people who end up talking about, you know, the topic, they have to bring out their own traumas, right? And they hope that by doing so, it's going to help change perceptions. And I think maybe I'm doing that, and you're doing that through, you know, talking about your own son, and so this is not something you readily really talk about, like say maybe 5 years ago, right? You won't go to work and say, actually, need a mental health break, right? Because I actually just don't feel great today, you know. So like that's why it's so important that, especially within bigger corporates, you know, big companies, there needs to be a really good communication plan, you know, because especially when you have such a huge, you know, array of different departments, we need a communication plan that people can see within the intranet, you know, a central space, you know, maybe a weekly newsletter. I think I talked about it a lot, and maybe e-learning in a very fun way that, you know, covers what neurodiversity really is and what that looks like with different cultures and, you know, different intersecting areas.
Got it. Well, great, Sam. I've as ever, I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate your transparency and openness. It's really great how brave you are and how kind of out there and talking about this topic. So, if I can, on behalf of the ND community, keep up all the great work. It's fantastic what you're doing. I'll also encourage our members and the viewers to actually make comments on this and ask what do they want to hear from you next. And if you're happy, maybe in a few months come back and we'll have a very narrowly focused follow-up discussion.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you so much, Dan, for this opportunity and this platform. You know, you're doing such great work, and I love that, you know, NiB has so many passionate volunteers behind it, you know, and also you to lead the way.
Thanks, Sam. And I'd encourage everyone to follow Sam on LinkedIn and also Twitter. Follow ADHD Girls, which is doing fantastic things in our community. And again, appreciate your time today, Sam. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye-bye.
See you later.